there it is. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So now we will acknowledge the certificate of posting, that the agenda was posted. Is there anything else I need to?
A motion to acknowledge the posting of the certificate.
Okay. And will someone move to acknowledge the certificate of posting? This is the agenda, tonight's agenda. Oh, so would you like to move to?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, and
I will second it.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. So the next item is public comment on items not on the agenda. Do we have any speaker cards?
There is no public comment via Zoom, and there is no public comment in the chambers.
Actually, this is B. Gonzalez, and I do have a public comment.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was just wondering if it's possible for somebody from this board, possibly the chair, to attend the ongoing Cal OES meetings, the updates that are happening. This board will be an integral part of moving forward. And I know members from county council and supervisors are attending, but I like things firsthand information, and it might be in this board's best interest if somebody attends. So I'm hoping that you guys will agree to allowing them to attend. The second item I wanted to ask about is there a contact number other than county council's telephone number where members of the public can get a hold of this board? I don't know if emails are necessary per se, but at least for anyone wanting to reach out from the public from your district, I think it might be a great idea to have a contact number and or an email for the chair. And then the third item is, since the Dunville area and Lovers Lane, San Felipe Road, a lot of people out there are reliant on internet. I was wondering, and a lot of residents are elderly and don't do the internet. I was wondering if maybe the board can consider, the Board of Supervisors / county, to possibly look at maybe a bulletin board at Dunville or near the Dunville market where residents can go ahead and look to information, maybe even post an agenda for this meeting out there, so that that way the residents can see and be informed and be involved if they so choose to. I understand there's regular posting sites, at the county office and the regular locations, but I think we need to work more closely to involve the members of this district, specifically that residential area. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor Gonzalez. Are there any other members of the public that would like to make a comment at this time? Okay. Could you come to the podium?
What is this called? No, what? So I could read it. Okay.
By Paula, actually, that called me and texted me that said this meeting was being held and invited me. So, just agree with Bia. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment on an item that is not on the agenda?
There is no more public comment.
Okay, then we will move on to approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
My
March
apologies,
13th.
we've been, I don't believe we finalized the minutes for the last meeting, and so at the next meeting, we will have minutes available for both.
They're done. They're complete.
Oh, okay.
They are finished. I'm not sure if we've
I haven't-
received them, though. I don't know.
No, they've been completed.
Whoops. Yeah, what we'll do is finalize them and include them with the agenda package for the next meeting. So you'll have both the meeting, the minutes for the meeting of the 13th and the minutes for this meeting available to review and approve at the next meeting. So it would be appropriate to simply continue this agenda item to the next meeting.
Okay, so we will continue this to the next meeting. We can move on now to the regular agenda. And the first item is an update regarding the FEMA application for emergency public assistance to repair the creek levee breaks.
How does that work? Better.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Madison Mitchell, and I'm with the San Benito County Office of Emergency Services. I'm supporting county staff with your public assistance application for FEMA. And so that has been submitted. Your request for public assistance has been submitted as of last week, I believe. The days are like blending. So, but that has been submitted. So at this point, we're waiting for Cal OES and FEMA to establish the fact that you're an eligible entity. So your special district, we know through Cal OES that you are an eligible entity, but that process needs to happen with FEMA. So you guys just recently applied for that SAM number, so that's kind of what's holding us up now. So once that is all processed and they determine you're eligible, then we'll be notified and we'll start the next steps to that process. And then that's going to be an overall introduction meeting with FEMA, and then we're going to move into further steps, which is going to be a scope meeting with Cal OES and FEMA as well to determine which projects we're going to pursue, and as well as of the final amount in funding for that. So right now we're kind of just in a waiting phase, but I'm expecting to hear something in the next week or so, hopefully, as to those next steps for you guys. Any questions?
What's the maximum amount that they're gonna possibly offer us?
Maybe Steve can.
So we are submitting $2 million for the levee repair and $500,000 for the creek cleanup repairs. So the max, to answer your question, that's what we're asking for. And of that amount, typically the best case scenario is about 6% would have to be a cost share, and the state and FEMA will pay for essentially 94% of that. If that answers your question. So.
My other question is because in 2017, they used $2 million to
No.
repair?
No,
What did
it
they
was
use?
approximately 800,000, I believe,
Oh, was it?
total. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but now we have kind of two breaches on one side and a mini breach on the north side, as you and I discussed. So, yeah. But
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah, this process will be rather lengthy. So in the next couple months, we should see your application be identified as an eligible application, and then that scope project will happen shortly after. Then we'll have, I believe, 60 days to gather all necessary documentation, which outlines the project, and that'll encompass that estimated $2 million, that debris removal and that repair. And then work will start from then. So it is a reimbursement project, which means the money is fronted. I'm assuming by the county, we're working to get more clarification on what that process looks like. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of conversations about that as well. But yeah, at the end of the day, we're looking at likely a 6.25 cost share, percent cost share for whatever that project total will be. And that when Steve talks about that 2.5 million, that is essentially our max award amount. So that's what we're requesting. We will not get anything above that likely. I do know in some cases there are modifications that can be made, but we're not going to get anything more than what we're requesting.
And when we hear, it'll be in May?
It really depends.
Somewhere in there.
I'm expecting to hear where we should be getting some kind of initial contact from a designated FEMA representative specifically for the special district. So the county's already been issued our contact just because we had established all of those government numbers that we needed. Because we're still in that process for you guys, it's kind of a delayed. So we should be getting that initial contact in the next couple weeks. And if for some reason we don't get that initial contact, we'll start putting out feelers to try to get one of those reps to see if we can expedite the process for you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We do have a hand raised via Zoom. You can speak now.
Hi, this is Yereni Jones. So my question, Steve, you mentioned there's a 6% cost share. Who pays for that cost share, the 6%? Is that something that falls on this district, or is this something that the county is going to be helping cover that cost share?
So for the public comment, we, as Madison just mentioned, we're trying to work that all out. The process is have FEMA confirm that all our documents are in order for the district. And then after that, they'll set up a meeting with all these folks, and that also addresses Supervisor Gonzalez's question. But like, for example, we just had the first meeting with FEMA, the official meeting today for the county. So we'll have that similar meeting for the water district, this water district, as soon as some of this paperwork is finalized. And then the next step is to request the funds. And then finally, we definitely have to coordinate internally, externally, who would pay for those funds. But to just apply, until we start using funds, we don't have to make that determination. So the first step is just apply to see if we even receive any funds. And if they say yes, then it's up to us, if we want to move forward, all of us, to determine, okay, who pays that 6%? Because we understand that the district is, financially constrained. There actually is a small amount of money that the district has, but it's a minor amount of money. I think it was left over from a long time ago. But so it just has to be discussed internally. So.
Is there any other public comment on this agenda item?
There is no public comment.
And any other questions from the board for Madison?
Well, I have a question. See, we get the funds to fix the levee. When you think we can start and fix it?
So I'm inviting the Department of Water Resources levee repair team to come out later this week, and I'll make myself available Thursday or Friday or Monday. So in the next few days, they looked previously a few weeks back, and they said everything was still too wet to do anything. But again, after this current storm, that's Tuesday, Wednesday, I'll be inviting them back out. We'll just walk the levees again, and if there's dry skies after that, we'll just have to make an assumption, and then after we receive the funding or determine that we're going to move forward, we'll be able to clean out the creek fairly soon itself, once that's approved by appropriate agencies and we have the funding. The actual levee repairs could take, I don't know, we'll have to get them started in maybe a month after we receive the funding, or a few weeks after we receive the funding. But again, like Madison said, we don't know when we're going to receive the funding. So that's the tricky part. But so I know it doesn't quite answer your question. We'll be able to do the creek cleanup ASAP, but the levee repair might be a little bit longer out. So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on this agenda item?
The next page. I'll leave this with you.
Okay, let's move on to 6B, update regarding additional funding opportunities for district flood recovery and future flood control improvements.
Hopefully the computer's okay. Put it down. Not lock into it. All right, thank you, trustees, for allowing us to discuss funding sources once again. So we've added a little bit more information to the funding sources, and we had a real good meeting last week with a lot of the agencies. And so I'll go through some of these similar ones real quick, and then there's a couple new ones that we've added to the list as well. So for the levee repairs themselves, if FEMA approves that $2 million, as we mentioned previously, 6%, technically it's 6.25%, would be a local cost share. 75% would be funded by FEMA, 19% would be funded by the state, which is Cal OES. So that's kind of the best case scenario for the levee repairs. Now, the debris removal, the $500,000, it's very likely that that could be 100% funded by FEMA for the the creek clean out, the $500,000. So we just have to wait and see how they react to our requests. But for things that the county's doing for that storm, they're paying 100% of the debris cleanup, FEMA is. So for the $500,000, that could be 100% right there. So just FYI. Now, if FEMA doesn't provide assistance, and I'm sorry about this numbering that is a little out of whack here, but Cal OES, if FEMA decides, well, we're not going to fund this for whatever reason, but I don't know why that would be, because the December, January storms were declared a federal emergency for the United States, for California. So therefore, FEMA should be involved. But if not, then the state by themselves, they fund 75% typically if it's just the state helping out. Just kind of an FYI. The hazard mitigation program, which is kind of a prevention program to prevent further damages from occurring, that ranges from 75 to 100% for Cal OES, and it just depends on how we approach that. But that's for future mitigation prevention of damages. So, but that's something we'll be pursuing. And then number 3, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, their programs are typically 65% funded by the Army Corps, and 35% would be local cost share if we decide to go that route and pursue that route of funding. And then NRCS, they also have their own program called Emergency Watershed Protection Program. They fund 75% of the construction and project costs, and then 25% would be funded by local cost share. One encouraging additional process that's occurring, and it sounds like it's even occurring as a result of these storms in December and January. So the USDA is in the final process of putting together a $40,000 grant to homeowners, and the nice thing about that is we do not have to qualify for individual assistance to receive that $40,000 grant. That would be applied directly by the homeowners. So folks that had damages to their property could just apply directly to USDA And as soon as we hear from them, they think it'll probably be a week or two. They weren't sure, a few weeks out from having the process finalized. We'll definitely, make that well known to all the homeowners in the county. And so that was encouraging. And those are the primary sources that we'll still be pursuing. Army Corps and even USDA have other different types of funds and loans and things, but those are the primary ones. And I don't know if Joel, if there's any additional ones that I missed from that call that we had last week, but
Yeah, I think it's accurate to say that the USDA grant is available for folks at 80% of the area median income and below, which is roughly $85,100 for, I think it's a family of 4. So for the grant, there is an income eligibility limit. There's a like amount available as a loan through that same program that doesn't have the same, I don't believe has the same income qualification. So it's possible to qualify for both the loan and the grant for, a total of approximately $80,000 if you're income qualified. So, or half of that if you're not eligible for the grant portion of it. So that's some potential help for the fact that the individual assistance through FEMA is not going to be available.
correct. So I'll pause there for
Question?
public comment or
I have a
questions from
question.
the
How
trustees?
soon is that available?
The $40,000 grant, we don't know. She said they were in the final stages of working on it, but she was hopeful that I wrote down a few weeks perhaps, but we don't know. Hopefully soon. So.
And we do have one hand raised. Yet any?
Hello, it's me again. Question, Steve. This is great news in regards to this last opportunity, the loan, the USDA. It says algoculture. So my question to that is this for farmers only that have algoculture? Because we're homeowners with land, but we're not farmers.
Go ahead, Joel. I'm sorry.
We don't know exactly what the criteria are. This is a new program, and as Steve pointed out, they haven't formally announced it yet. We got a preview at that Cal OES meeting that this program is forthcoming. So stay tuned.
Okay, so the question wasn't asked then at the meeting if it was just for farmers or not.
No,
Okay.
it was not.
Thank you.
There are a number of U.S. Department of Agriculture rural community funding programs that are not restricted to farmers, simply rural communities, and I suspect that this is one such program, but we won't know until we see the details.
Correct. And the impression that was provided during the meeting was that I'll say this, there was definitely never anything mentioned that it was only for farmers to apply. But like Joel said, we'll just have to wait and see the details when it's released. So.
Is there any other public comment on this agenda item?
There is no public comment.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you. Next, we are going to discuss the appointment of a clerk for this District Board of Trustees.
Yes, as background for that, Section 7 of the Stormwater District Act of 1909 provides that the trustees shall appoint a clerk who shall hold office at their pleasure and receive such compensation as they may fix. So that's the authorization to appoint a clerk. The clerk would serve the function that the county clerk and various county staff have been assisting us with as far as creating and posting the agenda, taking the minutes, and receiving and sending correspondence on behalf of the district. It doesn't have to be a resident of the district or a landowner in the district. It could be whomever you select. Now, you may not obviously be prepared to select someone tonight, but I just wanted to make the appointment of, bring that appointment of a clerk for the district to your attention and for discussion, and perhaps you have some ideas of who might be interested in that you could select.
Thank you. So just to clarify, at this time, county staff is performing most of those functions that a clerk would, a Shelby, for instance, is doing the minutes.
That's correct.
County staff is helping with the agenda. So if we chose a clerk outside of the county staff, then we may or may not compensate them? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay, so we would either be appointing someone, choosing someone who would volunteer, or we would have to negotiate some payment with them.
That's correct. And under the same section of the Stormwater District Act of 1909, the trustees are entitled to receive compensation up to $100 a day for each day's attendance at meetings of the Board of Trustees. That's not on the agenda tonight, but I just thought I'd bring that to your attention.
Okay, possibly a future agenda item. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts about that?
About the clerk.
About
Yeah.
the clerk, yeah.
Yeah.
How soon do we need to put them in position? I mean,
Well, as I say, for the time being, the county staff is performing that function for the district. But ultimately, it'd be appropriate to have someone perform that function for the district directly. And we're utilizing software for creating the agenda and the minutes of the meetings, and that would still be available for use by whomever you select as the clerk with the assistance of county staff.
Joel, do you have a recommendation of how we might find someone who could fulfill this role?
Well,
Oh, sorry, we have a hand raised via Zoom.
it's appropriate at certain point in the agenda to ask for public comment
Okay,
on this item on the agenda, and rather than have people kind of spontaneously ask questions or make comments in the midst of the discussion. So that's something within the prerogative of the chair.
that seems like a better way to do things. So we will get to the public comment in just a minute. So Joel, do you have any
well,
suggestions?
My suggestion would be that perhaps we could advertise for people who might be interested in serving on either a voluntary or compensated basis. So that could be done through social media, posting through the county public information officer, whatever other means you can, you might think would be appropriate for that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions before we take public comment on this item? Okay, we'll take the public comment now on this agenda item.
Micah, you have been unmuted.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Where is this money coming out of? Like what budget? Is that coming from the county or is that coming out of the storm district?
All right, well, just as a point of information for some of the of you are aware that today we found that the Stormwater District has an account with the county with approximately $51,000 balance in it at this time.
Public comment?
There is no other public comment.
All right, then we'll move on to the next agenda item. And that is discussion of the potential appointment of an advisory board or committee for this district. So, Joel, would you like to introduce this topic?
Yes, there were quite a number of people who attended the initial informational meeting about the reorganization of the district, some of whom had a lot of information. There are landowners in the district who are not eligible to serve on the board because they don't live there, but they also have a lot of information about the district, or they may lease land that they farm within the district. So it might be helpful to have a role for those kinds of folks to play, to both provide information and make recommendations to the Board of Trustees as to what actions might be taken. One such person who had a lot to contribute at that initial meeting was, I believe his name was Graham Bryans. Another person that I originally spoke to about possibly serving as a trustee are folks who have part of a corporation that farms within the district, with one of the principals of whom is former Supervisor Botello. So he has, 12 or 16 years, I think 16 years of experience on the Board of Supervisors, and so has some background in local government as well and connections there that might be helpful. There are some other larger farming operation landowners who perhaps have someone associated with them that might provide additional information or input to the trustees. Those are examples. If you decide to create an advisory committee, you could then solicit folks who just make it available and see, and then decide the size of the committee and who might be on it.
Do we have a fair amount of latitude in terms of creating this committee? I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
so however many people we think is a good idea, we can define their role, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Do the trustees have any questions?
I have a comment. I remember when they doing this meeting, to get people to be the trustees, and I know it's a lot of people. They have a lot of experience. People they know the area. I live in the area just a little close to 2 years, and I met people that they live there for 40 years, 30 years. Those is the guys that we really needed. The only problem is they last time you guys asking for people they live I don't know how many, half a mile for the creek, and I know it's a lot of people they live a little forward. Probably we can change that. The longest they live in that area, no matter si they are not close to the creek, we can count with those peoples. Like my neighbor, Ernie Barbosa, is only 10 feet away to be the trustee. So, and he's 82 years old, and he know the area better than most of our people. So it's the people that really need it. People they know the area for long time.
Yeah, and again, the advisory committee members don't have to live in the district or even necessarily own land in the district, as long as they have a background that would be useful.
Any other questions or comments from the board on this issue? No? Is there any public comment on this agenda item?
There is no public comment.
Okay, then we will move on to the next agenda item, which is a discussion of the process for the appointment of additional trustees to the District Board of Trustees. So, Joel, could you speak to this, give us some background on this topic?
Yes, again, Section 6.6 of the Stormwater District Act of 1909 provides that not less than 120 days before the general district election, the Board of Trustees may by resolution increase the number of trustees to serve on the board to 5 and may designate the first additional trustees to serve on the enlarged board. A notice of the vacancies has to be posted in 3 or more conspicuous places within the district at least 15 days before any appointment is made pursuant to this subdivision. And the Board of Trustees would determine the term of office of each of the new trustees to be appointed, and in no event, no more than 4 years. So the terms of office shall be determined in such a manner as to keep nearly equal as practicable the number of trustees to be elected at each subsequent general district election. And by that the law means to stagger the terms of office so that if you are adding 2 new trustees, one might be for a term of 2 years, and then their successor would be elected for 4 years, and the other would be appointed for a term of 4 years. And amongst the 3 of you, you have to essentially select who's going to serve a 4-year term or a 2-year term at the next district election, which would be not until November of 2024. So in that you have up to 120 days before November of 2024. This is not something you have to decide right away, but you can do it really at any time you wish. I don't know if you feel a groundswell of desire of folks to serve on the board. Again, they'd have to have the same qualifications of being landowners and residents for at least a year within the district boundaries to serve as trustees.
Well, it appeared at our last meeting that there might be some additional people who would be interested in being on the board, but I don't see any of those people here tonight. So, do either of the other trustees have any comments or thoughts, questions about that, about expanding the number to 5?
Probably 5 and I know it's more people they want to be here. You know, like Mr. George, he speak last time. We can ask him, you know.
Mr. Mancino applied to serve, and we had one other application that was submitted after the appointment was made by the Board of Supervisors of the 3 of you. Again, because there are applicants, doesn't mean you have to enlarge the board unless you think it's a good idea.
Okay, is there any other discussion about whether it's a good idea?
Now, my thought is that having 5 is fine, but I think we also need to have the participation in here. I mean, it's just be 5 of us just talking to each other. I'm pretty sure a lot of people were, expressing their grievances and everything that was going on, but I'd like to hear what they have to say right now. Where are they? They want to be on the board, but then you also have to be a participant, or at least an audience.
Well, my thought, this is just my thought, there was sort of this sense of urgency, right, when we were all appointed, and most of that had to do with getting that FEMA application in. But what I keep hearing is that people want to get things done, right? And if there's only 3 of us, it might actually be easier to get things done at first. Certainly, the next election is November 2024. Is my understanding, right? So we're all going to have to stand for election at that point. Am I correct in that?
Well, yes, and depending on the length of the term that you'd be elected for, whether it be 2 years or 4 years.
Right, but 2 years or 4 years, all of us are going to have to be elected at that point, and that's less than 2 years. That's just a year and a half away. Seems like that would be an appropriate time to expand the board to 5, because we're going to be having elections anyway. But
Right, and just on that front, if you have 5 positions available, and there are only 5 candidates submit petitions to run as candidacy positions, those 5 would be by law essentially appointed by the board without having to hold the election, which has the advantage of not incurring the cost of conducting the election. So that's something to keep in mind. And frequently, small districts of this nature have trouble getting enough people to run to serve on the board, and that's in part what happened, why this board became inactive in the first place. So
That's what I was thinking, that it's small, but then again, it's only a certain amount within that district. It's only a limited amount of us available.
right.
So we're just gonna be same people over and over. I mean, not just us, but I'm saying whoever else is also within that district.
Right.
Well, let's take some public comment on this agenda item.
It's on. Yeah, hi. Just real quick, Dom Zanger. My 2 cents, I would keep it at 3 and just move on the advisory committee board situation. I think that's probably the best. Like you said, it's the best way to get things done. Then also you can get the input from those that aren't qualified to be on the board anyway. So it's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you.
Hello again, Lucinda Floric. My family, my husband's family, been at Lover's Lane for quite a lot of years, almost 100 years. And so we have a lot of people that my husband knows. The only reason why we didn't volunteer is because we weren't going to be out of town during that week on this urgent matter when the committee came in. So we weren't going to be here. So that's why we didn't volunteer. But if you need help, I mean, I'm not working, so I'm willing to help if you need to. But yeah, we do have some resources on our background. So like I said, I'd like to volunteer my help if you need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment on this agenda item? Yes.
I'm Bill Floric. I lived on Lover's Lane all my life, basically. And basically, a lot of my frustration is that things come and they go. Like this committee is gonna maybe come and go. We need to really build a foundation and get some traction on this whole matter and create a creek that's gonna work. I mean, 2 million is a lot, but it's just gonna be a Band-Aid. And we're gonna be here again next year, worrying about the next break. So what I'd like to see somehow is to try to create something with you two or whoever to get some traction on this whole matter and try to obtain a long-term solution to the creek and what's going to happen not just 2 years from now, but 20 years from now, 30. So my grandkids can come up and say, "Hey, look, this creek worked." Don't even have to worry about it. And now it's a matter of my levees are thin. The 2 million going to repair this and repair a few things, but the whole creek needs to be redone somehow. Something's got to be reestablished there. So, anyway, just want to make that comment. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
There is one via Zoom. Yet any?
Hi. So I actually, I've been going back and forth in regards to whether we expand, add more trustees to the board, or we keep it as is. And just hearing some of the comments right now and just being able to think about this a little bit longer, I do agree that keeping the 3 would be best for the time being. However, I do believe that as a community, I don't know how this would look, but try to do something to open it up to the community, whether we have a Saturday and we try to invite the neighborhood out and just kind of see who really wants to step in. Like Mrs. Paulina said, everyone was eager the last meeting, but no one's here today. There's no one there. There's not a lot of people raising their hands, stepping forward. Everyone has a concern. We're all unhappy with the situation, but we really do need people that are go-getters and people are going to actually step forward and want to be a part of the solution. We can all complain until our face turns blue, but we need people that really want to step in and actually do something about it. So if we were to do a community thing just to open it up a little bit more versus, I still kind of have the feeling that a lot of people are saying, "Oh, we don't know when the meetings are. Oh, I haven't looked because it's not, I don't look online to see if it's posted or not." Just bridging that gap, I don't know exactly what that would look like, but trying to bridge it. And so my first thought is maybe putting something as a community for a Saturday, and what that would look like and see who actually steps forward. But that's just my thought on that.
Thank you, Yereni. Those are some good ideas. Any other public comment?
There is no more public comment.
Okay, well, we don't need to do anything with this agenda item right now. Perhaps when we get down to discussion of future agenda items, we'll decide whether we want to put it on the next agenda again. But for now, I think we can just move on to the next item, which is consider establishing monthly creek cleanup days sponsored by the district. Okay, so I have some questions. Well, actually, first I'd like to find out whether Joel or Steve have some comment or background on this idea.
This was an agenda item that Trustee Alfaro brought forward, so perhaps he might address that.
Well, I know we had to clean it first, and probably we can do a cleanup every like 3 months, and before the rain, we had to doing a very, very nice cleanup so we can clean all the debris before the rain is coming. I show a picture. I think so. Steve, he received a bunch of pictures. Right now, by the bridge, is area next to the bridge. We can talking about 20, 25 feet long by maybe 10 to 14 feet wide, you know. And I think so we call a few times, you know, so they can go and clean it before the rain, you know. Just imagine, see tomorrow it's raining pretty hard, and he can push all that debris next to the bridge, and they plug the bridge, is gonna be another big damage, you know. So it's something that we have to think in, you know, people that we live in that area, when we see the problem, you know, we have to fix it right away, prevent the damage, you know. And like I said, when they clean all the debris, and see we're gonna have chance to clean in everything, the trees, the dead trees and everything, I think so every 3 months we can do in a cleanup, you know, like the person, he said they live in Lovers Lane for a long time, and we had to keep doing, you know, year after year after year, because we planning to continue living that area, you know, and prevent, you know, is where I think we had to do it. Because like I said, when I talked to the people, they live there for a long time, is where they told me. They used to clean it. You know, all the people, they own the dairies and the farmers, they used to clean it. But when they started protect the wildlife, they stopped cleaning it. And it's 20 years ago, and it is what happened right now. All the trees, they 20, 30 feet high, and it's a lot of dead trees, and nobody doing nothing. And also, they told me that some person, they clean his area next to the creek, and they have a fine, you know, for $13,000, because we're not supposed to touch the area, you know. And Mr. George, I talking to Mr. George yesterday, and he told me the same. I used to clean everything because it's in my property. Now he cannot do it, you know. And I think it's all the comment that I had to say.
Thank you. So I have a question, actually. I guess this might be for Steve. What can we do without a permit there in the creek?
So I'll give you two pretty clear examples, I think. So the county recently partnered with Granite Rock and a group called CHEER, C-H-E-E-R, they're a nonprofit group, to go through the San Benito River prior to the storms. This was in November, and we walked through the creek, and we took out a bunch of tires, a bunch of debris. To answer your question, anything loose that's just, I'll call it garbage and debris, and that includes, you know, branches and things that aren't growing in the creek. We can do that, and we're fully allowed to do that, and you know, the agencies actually appreciate when folks are cleaning debris and garbage out of the creeks kind of year round. So that's number one. Number two, and Fish and Wildlife's actually going to speak at our meeting, the board supervisor meeting tomorrow around approximately 11 o'clock. Don't quote me on the time, but any loose debris or debris that's plugging things like near bridges, as Mr. Alfaro just mentioned, they'll absolutely let us do that now as well. I've actually reached out to Granite Construction to get their excavator with a claw on that pile that Mr. Alfaro just mentioned. Unfortunately, last time their claw it only goes approximately 60 feet, 65 feet, and so it couldn't reach the debris pile. But after the storms for Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, I'll bring them back out and see if we can get some of that debris off the creek. So to answer your question, anything that's loose or anything that's going to be presenting a life safety hazard, i.e. if you see a blockage in front of your culvert on your property, you can remove that blockage without permits. Anything that's going to cause flooding on your property that you're aware of, Fish and Wildlife says you can remove that obstruction from the waterway, like now, if that answers your question. So.
Okay, but if it's not loose, if it's like brush growing in the creek bed, that requires a permit.
Correct.
What about work? So the permit is required in the creek bed itself and then also on the levees?
Correct. Anything they consider a waterway from top of bank to top of bank. And so anything from not necessarily on top of the levee, but from the edge where the grade break is on the bank between those two tops of banks, that's where we need a permit. But like say you could drive a car or walk along the top of the levee, they don't consider that part of the creek. So.
Okay. So do you have any, given Trustee Alfaro's suggestion, can you see any way that we could have a cleanup day? Would it be useful to have such and I guess we would have to limit it then to loose debris. Would such a thing be useful?
Absolutely. And again, I think Cheer, I'll say, they removed the equivalent of, I can't remember, 20 cars full of garbage, not actual cars, but long story short, yes, it would be useful, especially during, the dry season, to go through that creek and clear out as much as we can of loose debris and garbage and things. I think it would be very beneficial, actually. So.
The debris removal that you are anticipating doing once we get the grant from FEMA, is that going to be along the entire waterway, or is that just going to be in a portion of the creek?
So they consider debris removal where it's blocking, obstructing structures such as the two bridge crossings. So adjacent to that area, we can clear that out, so to speak, once FEMA gives us the thumbs up for the funding. And throughout the creek, I'm pretty sure I'll hear tomorrow that we pretty much need a permit for sediment, vegetation that's growing in the existing creek. We'll need a permit for that type of work. So.
Would a monthly creek cleanup make sense, or would it make more sense to do it sort of at the end of the summer before it starts raining? What, in your opinion, would make the most sense if, as a district, we were going to do this on a regular basis?
Yeah, definitely say April through October. That would be the primary time to have creek cleanup events occur. So.
Okay.
I'm a lay person. I'm not an engineer, but I did walk to the area where the break occurred, and just downstream, immediately downstream from the break, there is a large down tree that is running, that fell across the creek perpendicular, and very assorted debris accumulated against that tree, and I would suspect at a high water event, it caused a turbulence at that point with the flow in the creek, which caused the levee to fail. Essentially, it was a whirlpool effect that just ate against the side of the levee and blew it out. That's again, just a layperson's observation, but it made sense to me. And so that's something that would require equipment to remove a dead, this is a dead tree that fell across the maybe 3/4 of the width of the waterway between the levees, and blocked a substantial portion of the creek. I think I sent you photographs that showed some of that that I observed. And so I don't think that's a volunteer effort that would be necessary to deal with something of that magnitude. But I'm sure that there's plenty of other stuff that perhaps could be dealt with on a volunteer effort, and perhaps consulting with the expertise of the cheer organization. Its head is Herman Garcia, and maybe getting him out there to walk the creek and see what suggestions he might have in terms of his organization or a volunteer community effort that would support a creek cleanup day with interested volunteers.
What does CHEER stand for again?
We'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay. Okay.
It's an acronym, but yeah. So.
Yeah. And their focus is on the greater Pajaro River watershed, so that includes creeks in the Gilroy area and the Pajaro River itself and the San Benito River as well, which is a tributary of the Pajaro. So they have a lot of experience in creek cleanups. And
Okay, I think I have the answer. You found it too, yeah. It stands for Coastal Habitat Education and Environmental Restoration. Coastal Habitat Education and Environmental Restoration. So.
So the California Conservation Corps, there are areas of the county that in times past jail inmate trustees have been involved in that kind of activity, either on roadsides or in creek beds and so on. So there are California Conservation Corps, as you suggest, is another possibility. So I think it's a great idea, and we need to explore some of those resources to see what can be brought to bear.
Do those resources charge? I mean, is that where we would be using some of the funding that we have, or?
Cheer does not, to the best of my knowledge. They're a nonprofit. They are just subsist on donations and various grants. But at least for the efforts that we partnered with, they weren't charging anything. So.
Okay, we should take public comment then on this agenda item.
There is one public comment via Zoom. You've been unmuted.
Hello, it's Yet Any again. Question in regards to, okay, so having a monthly cleanup, I believe that is something that we should definitely have. However, this is more of a preventative measure. In regards to what Steve was saying and Mr. Joel, having basically people with heavy machinery and having the expertise, I believe that that is firsthand where we would invest whatever money we're getting from FEMA or any other grants, getting the major cleanup done first. Once that's taken care of, preventatively, I do believe as a community, we should have a community day cleanup where people, landowners that are up against the creek, or even landowners that are not necessarily up against the creek, but it's in their area, they come out and clean and pull out all the loose debris, all the trash, whatnot. My question though with that is, if we were to hold a monthly preventative cleanup, all the debris and the trash that is collected, how then would it be picked up and properly be disposed? Would this be something that the county, like for example, what we had this past couple of times where Recology came out, everyone from Lover's Lane put everything out in the front of the street and they just picked up and they cleaned up that way. Like something like that would be pretty great, but it's just a thought. That was my thought. Thank you.
Is there any comment from staff about what we would do with the debris?
So we'll definitely have to coordinate, for example, with Cheer, but Cheer takes all the debris to the San Martin transfer station, which is essentially a large trash depository area. They didn't charge us, and I also performed the same action with a volunteer group, and they didn't charge that volunteer group either. So my guess is that's part of their own internal agreement with the transfer station and with their own funding. But long story short, it was free of charge, and they just took the debris away in 2 large truckloads for those events. So.
I have a comment here. The monthly cleanup to me seems too much of an extreme for monthly. During the wet seasons, wet months, we can't be out there, especially since some of our levees are thinning out. You can't have people just walking on those levees. Then there's the erosion part of it. The cleanup, yeah, maybe the end of the summer, in the fall months, that would be perfect. Right now, it just looks like it's a massive extreme of garbage out there because it's all collected like in a dam coming from way back somewhere else. But the creek normally does not carry that much garbage. It does not. Right now, it's just because it's all collected in one spot, and it looks that way. But yeah, I can see going out there and getting the place cleaned up. But once we take that big pile that's right there, then it's water flowing, everything's gonna be fine, and I really don't think that it's gonna be that much garbage for a monthly cleanup.
there any other public comment on this agenda item?
There is Micah.
So I'm confused. Hello, it's Micah. If we could clean up the creeks, and that's allowed, why didn't we do that before all the flooding happened? And you said you did do it, but I was told time and time again that FEMA didn't allow county to go, or yeah, Fish and Wildlife didn't allow county to go clean things up. And then as far as the monthly cleanup goes, you know, I don't think it's a comment on, you know, the time, whether it's monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, as long as there's continuous cleanup. And, you know, but as far as why couldn't we do that before? I mean, this is the whole issue. We were always told that because Fish and Wildlife wouldn't let us clean up the creeks, this is why we're having the flooding.
So the cleanup that we did for San Benito River was on Granite Rock property because Granite Rock owns a large portion of the San Benito River. And so they were partners in that effort. And the creek cleanup, it was, you know, it was primarily garbage and pollutants and those types of things. We weren't out there with, you know, bulldozers and heavy equipment and things. So, but long story short, they own the property and we partnered with them to really clean up primarily just trash and pollutants when we were out there. And like we've discussed, if FEMA grants us some money and, you know, we inform Fish and Wildlife what we're doing for the debris cleanup of the creek, and this district allows us that access, and or whomever is going to be cleaning up the creek, that's, you know, a different, bigger effort that A, requires funding, and B, requires, you know, property access to the creek. So hopefully that kind of answers the question. So.
Does the board have any further comments or questions on this agenda item?
There's one comment via Zoom.
Okay, let's take that.
Hi. Okay, so this is Yareni again. So just to clarify on the monthly cleanup that I proposed, it's not monthly from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. What I meant by monthly cleanup is during the time of the rain season. So preventative measures. So right before, you know, summer ends, and monthly during the time of rain season. So that's just to clarify that. The second thing that I wanted to mention in regards to, we keep going back and forth if FEMA funds or doesn't fund. So I just need clarification on this. From my understanding from this conversation we've been having, taking the debris out is allowed as long as we do not touch vegetation, anything loose, whatnot. Okay, great. Once the debris is removed, we will not be charged to dispose the debris. Steve, you also mentioned something about Cheer. You've worked with them before, and they did not charge. So if that's the case, why are we waiting on FEMA to start this process if it's not funded? It's not because of a monetary situation. We just need manpower. So therefore, I believe we should get it out there to the community and start. Now, if we are able to start, given obviously the weather, I'm not saying jumping in there while it's raining and the river's rushing. That's just not logical. If we are able to do it as a community and FEMA does give us funding, then wouldn't that be a better way to manage our funds, just to relocate those funds to actually fixing the levees if we are able to clean up per se for free? Just that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, this is Steve again. So if a farmer has a very large excavator and can go on the bridge and move debris that's blocking the bridge from flowing properly, I think we've been fairly clear that even Fish and Wildlife will allow that to occur. Now, a farmer that has just a small tractor and a small average size, any kind of equipment out there is going to get stuck today. And so I'll just leave it at that. But for larger equipment and larger activities, we will likely need some funding. That's larger equipment than even the county has in our yard. So we're going to need to engage a large Class A type contractor. For smaller, looser debris, garbage that's also blocking creeks, culverts, bridges, and those type of things, if, you know, a farmer has a blockage on his property, it's blocking a pipe culvert, he is allowed, by Fish and Wildlife, to unblock that culvert. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, but that's some of the constraints that we have out there with the debris that's in the creek today.
So Steve, it's fair to say that this is, at this point anyway, a pretty big job. And it's more like we need this specialized equipment, heavy equipment, to be able to deal with it. And it's less like, I don't know, say a beach cleanup day or something, where you can get the community out there. Not to be flippant about it, but, you know.
That's a correct way to frame the situation, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any other public comment?
There is no more public comment.
Do the trustees have any other questions or comments regarding this agenda item? Okay, then we will move on to 6G, mosquito abatement of continuing standing water from flooding and ponding due to saturated soils. And I believe this was also an agenda item suggested by Trustee Alfaro, if I'm not mistaken. So I will let.
Okay, I noticed in the last, we can say 2 weeks, is a lot of mosquitoes in the area. And I talked to my neighbor. Like I said, always I ask into the people, they live there for a long time. And they told me they used to fumigate it. Even told me that a few years ago they used a little airplane to fumigate the area. And I know there's a lot of water, lot of stacked water, and that it can be a big, big problem, you know, because the mosquitoes, they can get the dengue, and probably we had to do something pretty soon so we can stop, you know, so the mosquitoes, they can be more and more and more every week.
So what authority do we have as a district to address this issue, and what options would we have?
So the county has a mosquito abatement. It's not a district per se, but it is administered through the Agricultural Commissioner's Office. And so they have a program. It's state funded. It's actually local funding for that. There's an assessment you may notice on your property taxes. And so I would recommend that the district contact the Agricultural Commissioner's Office and have their personnel who operate the mosquito abatement district to come out and give them a tour of where the standing water is within your community, and they can treat it appropriately. with the currently authorized abatement, mosquito abatement controls.
Hold on, we're gonna take public comment in just a second. Before we do that, do the trustees have any comments or questions?
Okay, my only comment regarding the mosquito abatement is that there are some ponds that are out there. And I'm not sure if some of these ponds are on properties that are organic, so they might not like to be fumigated. So that's gonna be something that might hold us back.
Well, there are different techniques that they use for ponds. Sometimes they can use mosquito fish that they plant in ponds that eat the mosquito larvae and control it that way. So there are a number of different techniques that they use. I'm not exactly familiar with what they use in San Benito County, but there are different options.
All right, let's go ahead and take public comment at this time.
Well, regarding the mosquitoes, I am Mr. Alfaro's wife, Josephine, and every time that I go over there, you know, I drive around, and yes, indeed, it's a lot of mosquitoes. Even we have a tarp, and under the tarp is, you can say, infestation. Also, I noticed the water, it smells because it's been there for a long time. There is several houses that I see on the road. They still have in their fences debris. I'm sorry about my voice. And debris and garbage. And I can see a lot of water that stank over there and it smell. And I strongly believe that this is a very risky health issue for livestock, for plants, and for humans. So we are very, very considerate about that. So that is my thought about what my husband implement. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have other public comment on this agenda item?
Yes, Yareni.
Hi. Yes, actually, so, Miss Paulina, ponds tend to have natural insects and stuff that clean up the pond. There's like little, we have the frogs, we have all of that. So that's the natural course of it. And I totally agree. There's going to be some properties that may not want to be sprayed because it's organic. But the water that we're talking about is the water that was brushed up, that was already contaminated with the flood. So we have we have animal livestock manure, we have septic infestation in that water, and these are puddles and large bodies of water that are sitting with that type of water in it. And so these mosquitoes will start infesting the area, and they are feeding off of this water. And when they do bite, whether it's a human or a livestock, they will contaminate. And that is a health risk. It's a health risk to our animals, horses, goats, anything, dogs, and even us, humans. Thank you.
Thank you, Yareni. Do we have other public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay. So Joel, would you be able to give us the information for the Ag Commissioner, or is that readily available on the account?
It's available on the county website, so.
And the gentleman's name is Ken Griffin, but it's, yeah, his info is on the county's website, so.
Okay.
So perhaps this is something that the board could make a motion to contact the Ag Commissioner and ask them to come out and make an inspection and propose mosquito abatement controls.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I motion that we get somebody out there so that we can get some sort of an idea as to what we can do for the mosquito infestation that might be concurring.
And do you second?
I just want to make another comment. Steve and Abraham, sometimes they go to my house, and they see I try to pump water almost every day, you know, so I can try to keep my area dry. And I know sometimes it's hard for another owner, you know, properties to do that, you know, but it's something that always I try to do in my best, you know, but sometimes it's not enough. Because every time when it's raining, the water is coming out of the tanks because it's so much pressure right now. You know, the ground, he cannot suck no more water, you know, but at least I try to doing something, you know. Probably see the other owners, they try just a little bit too, you know, we can help, you know, so we don't have too much water in the ground, you know. Even somebody told me, see, we try to spray Clorox, and the water, we help it to kill the mosquitoes. I don't know if it's true.
There's a motion. The question is, you know, is there a second? And
Can I second motion?
yes.
As the chair? Okay, then I'll second the motion to ask the Ag Commissioner to come out and take a look. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, opposed? Okay, then we will ask the Ag Commissioner to come out. Do I have a volunteer amongst the trustees to spearhead that effort?
I can do it.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're almost finished. Just two more agenda items. 6H, discussion of future agenda items. So do the trustees have any specific ideas of things they would like on, say, next month's agenda? I have one. I would like to further discuss and possibly even take a vote on forming an advisory committee.
That sounds good.
Other agenda items? Well, we can take some comment from the public as well, if you.
Again, this is Lucinda. One of the things that I would like to see is a little bit more visibility of what is actually being done to the creeks and what is being repaired. Just so that people can be informed of what maybe they see that also maybe the district may be missing and added to it. So let's say we have a breakage at the bridge that's only about within 60 feet or so, and that was missed, for example. And so I can easily say, oh, call the district, oh, you missed this particular concern that I have that needs to be addressed. Or if my house is very close to the levee and I see a very thin levee in that area, and I say, have you guys seen this particular levee? It's not in your proposed idea of being fixed. You know, how can you address this? So I would like to see something like that, maybe a little bit more visibility so that the owners, the landowners that are there can actually see what is being done. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have further comment from the public on future agenda items?
This is Bill Floric again. Yeah, basically just would like to discuss, for instance, I guess something that, for long term again, as I had mentioned before, but you know, with the Pajaro district and you know, all of our water goes through the Pajaro. Is there any way we can work in concert with them, you know, or, you know, I guess it had to be state mandated or something like that, where, you know, along with them, because each one's got their own district doing their own thing. They clean up theirs and we're not cleaning up ours, or vice versa, or whatever. So somehow we got to have it so the flow in the long term again. I mean, it doesn't have to be something discussed readily, but within a few months anyway, to how we're going to address this and how we're going to make the creek flow better. And the trees are a big contributor, but there's also issues with the Fraser Lake area. You know, we've been allowed to have the agriculture and the airport and all that brought the ground up. It didn't used to be like that. It used to kind of flow through, and even though it was a mess, it would still kind of flow, but something to that effect where it would, something we could address with the other districts so we can work, coordinate with them and how to address the whole issue. So that's it. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yes, yet any.
Hello. So one of the questions that I actually brought up the last meeting and a few other meetings, and I just feel like I get no answer really, is we had mentioned even in the supervisor meeting a couple weeks back, I had asked if we can talk to Santa Clara, reach out to Santa Clara County and see if they are able to help because of the Pacheco Dam causing a lot of the issues of also, you know, the levee and the creek overflowing. And just wondering, like, are they going to ever be held liable? Are we ever going to knock on their door and say, hey, this is what's going on? You know, I know they're in the project of expanding the dam, but this is one of the reasons why we are flooding so many times throughout the years. It's not just rain. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Yes. One more from Yereni.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that, but I guess my can we add that to the agenda, or can Steve or Joel answer that question now?
So I'll answer it in conjunction with the previous comment. So over the course of the past year, Santa Clara Valley Water District has created a program called Watershed One and One Watershed. And they're analyzing each of, I think there's 5 major watersheds in Santa Clara County. And this is one of them. They call it the Upper Pajaro Watershed. And so I've corresponded with them just over the past week or two when I found out about that effort, so that our county will now be working in conjunction with them when they study the Upper Pajaro Watershed. As far as reaching out to, I don't know, them or the other perhaps 30 or 40 property owners that own the creek, I don't have maybe any comment on that. It's a kind of a bigger discussion issue, but I have reached out to Santa Clara County and its Santa Clara Valley Water District to at least be part of the study of the entire watershed. And even regarding a previous comment, we'll be applying for funding to do a hydraulic study of the entire watershed. Hopefully we are granted that funding as well, because as was noted previously by the public, there's a lot more going on than just this one small segment where we had some levee breaches. We need to study the whole levee system, the whole watershed, and come up with, a bigger game plan for the entire area. So I'll just pause there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this agenda item?
There's no public comment.
Any other questions, suggestions, comments from the board regarding future agenda items?
I just need a clarification. So when were they gonna be able to come and see what they can do with that dam that's right there, all that debris?
So Granite Construction actually came out last week and determined that their largest excavator could not reach that debris pile. However, we'll bring them out again after Wednesday's storm events, and I think the pile of debris has gotten closer to the bridge, in my humble opinion. So hopefully the plan is to use their claw and to kind of claw at it and put it, on the levees, outside, the banks. So I'll hopefully bring them back Friday or Monday is my goal to answer your question. So.
Any other discussion on this agenda item? All right, let's move on to our final item, which hopefully won't take very long, and that is a review of the calendar of regular meeting dates. At our last meeting, we set the fourth Monday of every month at 6 p.m. as our regular meeting date. However, it turns out that on a quarterly basis, the Fish and Game Commission uses this space on Monday at 6 p.m. on the fourth Monday. So I would like to propose that we pick another Monday.
I have an alternate suggestion, if I may.
Yes.
The Planning and Building Department has a large conference room there and have just obtained the equipment to be able to do Zoom meetings there. And so perhaps when the Fish and Game Commission is meeting in this place, the district could meet at Technology Parkway, where the initial community meeting was held, in that same room.
Well, that would be closer. Closer to Lover's Lane, that's for sure. Okay, do we need to decide on that? Do we need to vote on that?
No, I think it would be appropriate to have a motion to say alternate meetings when this venue's not available, that the district Board of Trustees meeting be held at that alternate location.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, is it possible to make that room our regular meeting space? Or is-
Yes, it should be, but I mean, I don't control that, and
The folks taping it, I don't know. The folks in the control room right there that tape this, control the video.
yeah, I know, we'll have to get back to you about exactly that.
Okay. Well, maybe then we can
Because
table this.
there is a way, if we're holding the meeting on Zoom, that recording can be done through Zoom as well. But it wouldn't be with quite the same level of technological support that we have here.
Okay. Well, in the interim, perhaps we just vote on designating that as an alternate meeting space when this space is not available and keeping our fourth Monday. Is there any discussion about that amongst the trustees? No. Any public comment on this issue?
Yeah, just basically what you were referring to, as a recording would be nice, so we can use it as a reference for later. Or, just refer to it, it's good to have it as a recording and, this type of setup,
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment on this agenda item?
There is no public comment.
Okay. Is there a motion to designate the the planning department? What's the proper way to describe this meeting room?
Well, I'll designate a
The
motion.
RMA conference room?
RMA conference room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Designate the RMA conference room as the alternate meeting place.
Okay, is there a second? Okay. I'll second that then. Okay, so we are voting. It's okay. We're gonna hold. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. ¿Es en el que está en el de los sheriff?
Sí.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I agree.
Okay, let's vote on it officially then. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so that passes. Okay, so now the only thing left to do is adjourn. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Okay, and do you second the motion to end the meeting? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so we are adjourned. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.